Hi, I'm Pokemon. That's right, Mom, like your mother. And in this video, we're gonna talk about why you shouldn't judge a book by its cover and why you shouldn't judge a Pokemon by its picture. Let's get started.
Pokemon.
Wow, Generation 8, by far the most controversial gen this far. If you've been following any of the news about Pokemon Sword and Shield, you've obviously seen the explosion of hullabaloo within the community, like the Dexit crisis, the offensive tree bark graphics, double kick only being 2 hops, not that hop, and of course, the explosion of leaks dumped all over the internet just days before the game's release. And while leaks can sometimes be a good thing to get people hype and talking about the game, in this case, I felt really bad about the way these leaks were delivered. Because there were so many people who were very vocal about hating the games and making sure you did too because other people aren't allowed to have fun, they were foaming at the mouth with insults, ready to tear these poor little guys to shreds before they could even see the light of day. But by judging these Pokemon based on blurry pictures from the guidebook and still shots from the game, their premature reveal did not give them the justice they deserved. And a lot of these Pokemon were unfairly judged and had a lot more to them than what people originally thought. After seeing a Pokemon in action in the games and anime, it can completely change the way you feel about it. Without that chance, the Pokemon might not get the credit it deserves. One example for me was Incineroar. Many people were shook when they found out that this adorable kitten turns into this horrifying beast. What happened? I was kind of taken aback by the design as well, but after seeing him in Smash, he eventually ended up growing on me and now I can't imagine the game without him. Seeing him in action definitely gave him a memorable personality, and I'm actually really happy they went with the more surprising, unconventional route rather than something low-key and predictable. From what I've seen, the majority of hate for these new Pokemon has subsided, and after seeing them brought to life in the game, they changed their opinions and have grown to like the new designs quite a bit. It's crazy to think that you actually had to play the game to review it, right? I know! So here are some of the Pokemon that I believe were misinterpreted and needed more backstory for people to really appreciate their unique charm. One of the biggest misconceptions in Gen 8 was Phalanx. At first glance, everyone assumed it was just a boring bug-type caterpillar, but it's actually anything but that, and is a pure fighting type that's not an insect at all. It is actually little Kirby soldiers in a line that break formation to attack. The 6 troopers all work together as one Pokemon, and is actually inspired by the Phalanx formation, where each unit lines up close together and covers all sides with their shields. And Phalanx even resembles Spartan helmets from ancient Rome. But instead of using the same spelling, it even has the word lynx in it, which is cute because they form a chain link. I think it's a really clever Pokemon idea that obviously couldn't be understood from a single image alone. Another Pokemon that was ripped apart was poor little Applin and its evolutions Flapple and Appleton. They instantly generated a shitstorm of angry comments and insults. Wow, they're really running out of ideas. Oh, so they cut my favorite Pokemon for this? Pokemon just isn't good anymore. Gross. Relax. For some reason, a lot of people hate on Pokemon that are based on inanimate objects. But I actually think they're some of the most creative because, like, how many boring fish and shit brown birds could we possibly have? Come on. I mean, after all, nothing could top the ultimate pinnacle of creativity and design of Gen 1 with masterpieces like Seal and Krabby. Imagine the hate these guys would get if they were released in Gen 8. The amount of hate I've seen for the Vanillux line is absolutely horrifying to me. Like, what did this harmless little ice cream baby do to you? What the fuck? One mentally ill person actually wrote a long detailed article about how it's the worst Pokemon, and let me tell you, it goes in. Somebody's gotta be at the bottom of the barrel, right? Not everyone can be a winner, despite what some people may say. Well, excuse me, Roland Bishop. The only bottom of the barrel I see is this shitty article. Hello.
Hello.
Anyway, Applin is much more than just an apple with googly eyes slapped on. It's actually a small worm-like creature that burrows into an apple when it's born to hide from birds that want to eat it as prey, and its tall eyes are meant to look like the apple stem. If it becomes Flapple, it turns into a larger dragon-like creature that now also uses the apple as wings. And considering its grass dragon typing, it could also be a play on the word worm, which is a type of serpent-like dragon. And Appleton is a dragon-like creature inhabiting an apple pie body, and the piece of its apple is now worn as a helmet, and its droopy ears are actually its eyes, and the skin on its back is especially yummy, and children used to have it as a snack.
Oh no. Aw.
I'm so happy to see that these little guys have grown on people since the game release, because they really deserve all the love in the world.
Yay.
Some other Pokemon that were easy targets were the fossils, with names that sound as sloppy as their appearances. Dracozolt, Arctizolt, Dracovish, and Arctivish. I ain't typing all those names on there. These wacky-looking abominations definitely stuck out amongst the bunch. The only one that kind of looked acceptable was Arctivish, until you realize that its head is actually on upside down and its mouth is on top of its head.
Whoa,
Their disproportionate
what?
bodies and wacky color combinations were considered hideous and perplexing, but these poor guys are meant to be hideous abominations because they are the Frankenstein creations of two mismatched fossils brought to life by this horrible, unqualified scientist who stands in the desert all day just cranking these guys out like it's nothing. So you kind of have to feel bad for them because their Pokédex entries explain how these poor guys are forced into existence only to live a life of suffering because their bodies are put together all wrong.
Aw.
But yet people had the audacity to make fun of them as if they had a choice. After learning the truth, many fans realized that instead of hating on them, we really should be hating on her for bringing them to life when they probably just want to be put out of their misery. I think it's a pretty fun and creative way to take the usual formula of basic rock-type fossil Pokemon and literally mix it up a bit. And it's kind of funny that this lady can't even match her shoes. So maybe she's not a complete idiot. Maybe she just has really bad vision. Or maybe she's just a bitch. Either way, these guys are definitely a unique addition to the game, and are now considered pretty lovable amongst fans, especially since they're pretty strong in battle too. Many people are also not a fan of humanoid-looking Pokemon, and at first, I thought Hatterene was a
Hatterene.
feminine-looking humanoid design that looked like it was wearing a hat and trench coat. But upon closer examination, you can actually see she has a little alien body floating underneath. She evolves from the adorable little Hatterene whose body is held up by its pigtails, but she now disguises her smallness with her hair-like cloak. It is also known as the Forest Witch Pokemon, or now Vibe Check Pokemon, which people started calling her after they read the Pokédex entry, which is pretty funny. If you're too loud around it, you risk being torn apart by the claws on its tentacle. This Pokemon can read the emotions of creatures over 30 miles away. The minute it senses hostility, it goes on attack and is known to some as the Raging Goddess. She even slaps the shit out of Gardevoir in
Hola.
Pokemon Camp. What?
Adiós.
Girl! After learning that this Pokemon is just 100% done with your shit before you even begin, you kind of have to love it even if you're not a fan of the humanoid design. One of the Pokemon that I was surprised to find myself liking was
Centiskorch.
At first glance, Centiskorch just looks like a gross red centipede that I wouldn't give two shits about. But when I saw it in the game, I actually ended up thinking it was pretty? Especially since it was the first Gigantamax form I ended up seeing in my playthrough, which absolutely rickety wrecked me in battle
wrecked.
when I was at a lower level in the game. It resembles more of a flowy ribbon-like Chinese dragon rather than an insect, and shapes itself into weird radiator coil designs, which I wasn't expecting. And it reminds me of Volvagia, the boss of the Fire Temple in Ocarina of Time, which is
Cool.
fun. Eventually, I was able to catch it after it murdered me like 4 times because I didn't realize that you had to press start to connect to the internet, so I wasn't actually inviting anyone to do the raid with me, and I was stuck with this horrible Solrock and Magikarp. But I did it.
Good job.
And what I thought was going to be just a boring bug was actually a badass Pokemon that I was excited to add to my collection. I had the same situation with another bug type, Orbeetle.
Orbeetle.
It originally just looked like a boring beetle, but once my Dottler evolved, I was surprised to see it actually looks more like a UFO than a bug, using its psychic big brain to fly rather than wings. It's especially cool in its Gigantamax form, which is basically a giant flying saucer with flashing lights, giving it an unexpected Dr. Robotnik vibe. And then I also realized it looks like a giant mushroom. It's the gift that keeps on giving. For a basic bug type that you can encounter early on in the game, it's definitely something cool that could be with you for the long run.
And so that's why it's important not to judge a book by its cover or a Pokemon by its picture without seeing it in action in the game. And I feel like a lot of people realized that they were wrong, and the Pokemon that they originally thought was stupid might have ended up being their favorite. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a good night.
Okay, bye.